All right, welcome to the Nashville Money Guys podcast, hosted at Nashville North Archery, which is perfectly normal. This is the podcast-based setup that we have for my archery podcast. But it's been a while.
Nobody said you could cross-promote.
Well, listen, people are still here. If they're listening, they're still here the first 5 seconds in.
Actually, could you cross-promote this podcast on your other one? Because
that is true.
We need more viewers.
Well, we get 200 on here. This is extremely specific information for a very small group of real estate investor people in the southeastern portion of the United States that want to use hard money. Like it's a, it's a niche audience. It's niche. What we're going to go through today is we're basically going to go from zero through what it is like to go through an entire hard money loan, and then we're going to fill in a ton of gaps. We asked ChatGPT some of the questions that are commonly asked by other people, and we're literally going to take you from zero all the way through what it is, what the full experience is like, why you would use a hard money loan versus other types of funding. Like we're going to go full meal deal without any ado.
Zero, like beginner level is what you mean by zero.
Yeah, zero. Like I think that I don't even have to put qualifiers on it. Like your questions will be answered as we're going along with this because this is extremely thorough.
Yeah.
So if you've ever thought about hard money, what is it? I don't have any clue. We will answer those. If you're very experienced and you're in growth mode and you want to pick up some more property right now, you will also learn stuff here. So this is like this will run the gamut as far as new people to probably intermediate people. It'd be a good one.
All right. So the outline real quick is just intro to what hard money loans are, who typically uses them and why, and when and where do they make the most sense. So what is a hard money loan?
Do it. What's a hard money loan?
Hard money loan is a loan usually on real estate that is based on an asset. Typically.
Versus what like a lot of bank people understand is they pull your credit. It's a lot more based on you and your ability to pay.
Correct.
Whereas a hard money loan is typically a little more asset based, and in our case, very asset based.
Very asset based. Yeah. So in the real estate world, a hard money loan is used to acquire an asset that you are usually going to use as an investment, or all the time use it as an investment.
It's not like for your personal home.
Correct.
Yeah. All right. Fill in some gaps.
So I would say when I always talk to borrowers and they're like, hey, do you guys, what do you need from me? And I'm like, well, we do need some financials from you. We want to make sure you've got the ability to repay us because that's important. But really, the house is qualifying for the loan, not you. And I think that's an important distinction between, like, if you go to a bank, then they're like, okay, we're qualifying you to make sure you can repay us, and the house is kind of secondary. And with hard money, we're like, no, we're going to look at the house first. Because in a worst case scenario, we end up with this house back if you don't pay us. Are we happy with that? Then yes, we'll do that loan. And if we're not happy with that or wouldn't be happy with that, then we won't do the loan. But it's the house is qualifying for the loan, not you as the borrower.
Perfect.
What does that actually mean though? Like,
okay, go. If that triggers something for you.
Yeah. So what does it mean when the house qualifies for the loan? How do we quantify that? Essentially, the house has to be worth a certain amount of money at the time you buy it, and hopefully more when you're done with it. And we'll loan based on those numbers.
All right. So what are the numbers for Nashville Money Guys?
Yeah. So to do a flip, you have to know what you're going to sell the property for after it's complete. So
let's use $100,000 as the example, just because it's easy. Okay. Like the ARV after repaired value is $100,000.
Yeah. So the ARV after repaired value is $100,000. The most that we would ever land on a deal like that is $65,000.
And for a lot of people, they're like, wait, what? I'm confused. Why would I only be able to get $65,000 if the house is worth $100,000? And the answer is because it's not worth $100,000 right now. Right. It's probably super beat up. It needs a lot of renovation. There's all sorts of specific circumstances why people would get a deal on a house, and I'm putting deal in quotes, because typically you're solving a problem for somebody else that person has probably created through negligence.
Right.
And the house has gotten pretty beat up.
And those numbers are pretty much industry standard. Like we're loaning typically at 65% loan to value, and most investors are in that 65 to 70. And so if you ever see MAO as an acronym, then that stands for maximum allowable offer. And the formula for that is basically just what is ARV and I'm sure we'll talk about how to get to ARV at some point, but after repair value, what's this thing actually going to be worth once it's fixed up and all pretty? And then you times that at a minimum of 0.7. So in this example, if ARV is 100 grand, 70,000 is what you need to be all in as an investor. So then you back out your rehab budget. So rehab budget is 20 grand. Your MAO, maximum allowable offer for the property, is 50 grand. So that means you're going to start with 40 and then hope to land at 45 to 50. But the most you could pay for that house is 50 grand and still have that 30% gross margin.
Perfect. Do you want to talk about interest rates of why a hard money loan is typically a higher interest rate? Is that the place we want to go, or I don't? Or does it get into that?
It mentions that, but not specifically.
Okay.
Yeah.
I mean, I think that's not a bad idea of thinking about the different tiers of money, and because then we can also explain why you would use hard money versus a private loan versus a bank loan versus assets that you already have. Before we move on, though, I wanted to say one more thing about the 65% LTV, because we will loan more if somebody has other collateral that we can basically include in the deal.
Yeah.
So we've done this a number of times where somebody's had a rental property that had equity, and essentially they would be bringing that into the deal. We'll just the cross collateralizing, but I'm trying to use normal person jargon. And that would basically allow them to leverage up a little bit more on the other project because they're creating safety for us with this other piece of property.
Yeah. And that's really something that is unique to a small mom and pop hard money shop like we are. So you've got hard money and then institutional financing, but even within hard money, you have more mom and pop, which is what we are. So it's actually our money and then other investors that we pool with our money to make loans. And then you've got institutional financing within the hard money space, and they've got very clear buckets of we only loan in these markets, we only do this, and it's very much they're underwriting
Commercialized.
a commercialized process because they're doing much more volume than we are as well. So the cross collateralization piece is really something that's unique to like smaller mom and pop, because a hedge fund owned debt fund, they're not going to be like, oh yeah, well, what else do you have? We could do that. And so we can get a little more creative with solutions versus institutional hard money.
And that's allowed us to do some deals that were definitely skinnier, but that were like special to somebody for a specific reason. This deal is in my hometown near my parents or whatever. And they're able to bring in a bunch of their own, paid for rental property or rentals with equity. And then we can loan much, much higher if that's the case. All right, so let's go through the different tiers, I guess, of interest rates, because I think that can also lead into some of the fees and stuff like that. I want to get to that before we get too deep into this, because I think that's another thing that sets us apart is the fee structure that we have being so simple. Like we're like the Southwest Airlines of, well, we're the Southwest Airlines before. They decided to stop being Southwest Airlines. So let's talk about the different types of financing and the interest rates typically associated with it.
So starting with banks?
Well, I think like personal assets or cash. Like if you have cash that's sitting on the sidelines, you just use your cash to buy a house, and that's the cheapest interest rate wise, right?
Yeah.
That one seems pretty obvious. The next one would probably be a bank loan.
Yeah.
Well, it'd be like Fannie, Freddie, FHA type, long term for personal residences at least. And even I guess Fannie Freddie still does 20% down, non-owner occupied.
So why would people not just do that then?
Because Fannie and Freddie is going to look at your house that has dog poop everywhere, and like they're just the asset type is they're going to look at that and go, yeah, no. And also appraisal wise, like we're appraising it based on what it's going to be worth, and a traditional lender is like, no, what's it worth right now, and then they lend based on that value.
That's a big deal.
And your purchase price.
Well, and they require the down payment, so that we don't typically,
and we won't. So, I mean, depending on how good the deal is, we will literally lend 100% of the purchase price and the rehab, the fix-up costs. Like, we will do that as long as the deal is good enough that we're remaining under that 65%, loan to value.
Right. I think the next one then would be like the local commercial banks.
Okay.
And they will lend on rehabs that look gross, but they also require usually a down payment, and they also require they're a higher interest rate.
Higher interest rate, and the process of going through it with all the paperwork It's not the asset qualifying. It's back to
It's
that
still
whole,
you.
do you qualify to do this? And the process takes a long time typically. Like it's home loans when we all started, you could knock one out in 3 weeks, like a legit, FHA, they do it in 3 weeks. Now it's 6. And if you're trying to do a rehab loan with a small bank, I bet you're not getting it done before 60 days.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
They will tell you 30. But
And that's another reason why people use hard money instead of any of the other alternatives is time. So when sellers become distressed sellers, they normally don't have a ton of time to get rid of the property. So it's either a pending foreclosure, it's a move, like they need to sell tomorrow. And so we don't have that actual stat, but our average loan closing is probably 2 weeks.
yeah, I would bet
Maybe
that's
less,
right.
10 to 14 days. And our record is 18 hours. Like borrower came in and was like, hey, I had a deal with another hard money lending company and they dropped in all these fees the last minute. Can you guys close this? And we literally closed it in 18 hours because title work was already done. But
Don't do that to us, please.
we don't like to advertise
get as much
that.
time as you can. But yeah, that's another big piece is like you just don't have the time typically when you're looking at a distressed property to go in and have a 30-day, I'm going to submit my bank records, W-2s, et cetera, et cetera.
Yeah. And that's especially the down payment side. Like we get a lot of people that the reason we are appealing is that they can be keeping their cash for safety or doing something else with their cash. Yeah. So the fact that we'll loan on what the future value of the house is after they fix it up is a really big deal. Like a bank is going to look at it and go, what is it right now? Yeah. Or they're going to make you bring in a licensed general contractor who puts together, like I just did it for some buddies of mine, the amount of hey, I have a question about this. What about this? What about this? What about this? It took 90 days to get that loan closed because they were literally making me go give them hard estimates from certain subcontractors that they just wanted to see. It was crazy for Chad and Sarah. So, so the next tier up would probably be like
private?
family friend, private,
Family friend, private money. Yeah, which can be easy. Depends on the person, but it is harder to find.
For sure.
Very hard to find.
And so a lot of that comes down to, do you have the experience that this person is going to trust you?
Yep.
Or do you have a relationship with them that they're willing to lose some of their money if this doesn't go well?
Right.
And like we all have relationships with people that we have done private money, but it took quite a while for people to go, you've now got a track record of doing this that I trust that you're not going to lose my money. Yeah. And like that's a sacred thing.
Well, and we still have people that we've used for decades.
Yeah.
That every single deal, they're like, this one's a good one, right?
Yeah.
Like
literally one of the guys, we've been having for 20 years and that guy, every deal acts like we've never done this before. Yeah. But I mean, I think that's a smart way for him to be because he really cares about the safety of his money.
Yeah.
So he's being a good steward.
Also, the responsibility of the borrower that comes along with using friends, family, all those, just make sure you're doing it right. Like you don't want to put their money at risk.
Yeah. So, yeah. But typically those interest rates probably with private, you're going to be in the 10% range.
Roughly 10,
like if we're backing up conventional loan right now through a bank is 7 to 8% probably.
Yeah.
And then FHA, you're getting maybe another % down, maybe a hair more than that. So
we either skipped over one or another one that's coming next would be a line of credit. So if you have assets that are either paid for or paid down significantly, like on your personal residence, even if you have a first mortgage, but there's significant equity above that, you can get a HELOC, home equity line of credit, tied to your actual primary residence. And that would be easier money than going with hard money and cheaper money. So it's going to be more expensive typically than a Fannie Freddie product. But if you've got that, access that first or access it in combination with hard money so that you can put a bigger chunk down and save money on interest. Or if you've got rental properties that are paid for, then go to a local bank and say, hey, let me put a line of credit against this. And you typically can get 60, 70% pretty easily of the value. And again, your interest rate will be in today's market probably 7.5%, so higher than what you could get a home loan for, but cheaper than hard money. So if you've got those assets available, make sure you're leveraging those to be able to pull cash from those first before you have to go hard money, more expensive hard money route.
I think people they're like, well, I don't want to risk those.
Yeah.
And you're kind of like, no, it's all at risk anyway. Mm-hmm. Like no matter what you're trying to do, if you're going to go borrow more money, like pretty much everybody's going to make you sign a personal guarantee So like if you really do a bad job and something goes horribly wrong, all that stuff's in play.
Right.
So personal guarantee, just a little jargon insert here, is yes, it's my LLC that owns the property and the LLC is borrowing the money, but every hard money lender that I know of is also going to make you sign a personal guarantee. So yes, the LLC goes bankrupt, but that's not the end of the story. They're actually still coming after you because you've personally guaranteed that debt, and you're going to sign that with pretty much every lender out there in terms of hard money.
And maybe a private party, like a private lender, is not going to make you sign a personal guarantee.
Right.
But I think any title company that's worth their salt might slide that doc in there, just to make sure that the lender's covered.
Yeah.
Also, just have the mindset, if you're borrowing someone else's money, treat that with more respect than you would treat your own. Like that was kind of always our mindset when we were borrowing. Like, okay, this is whoever's money that we're going to use on this project. Like, I will work a second job or do whatever I have to do to make sure that gets paid before anything else gets paid.
How much money have we lost for another person since we've been doing this?
$0.
$0. Because you're exactly right. Because it was vital to us to keep our reputation intact and make sure that no matter what happened, we made people whole. Yeah. Like we've made mistakes, we've done stuff like that, we've fixed it, and then we've made it whole.
Back to 2008.
Right. Since we've been borrowing money to do our own projects. Yeah. So like pushing 20 years. Yeah. That is crazy. That's where the bags under my eyes come from right there, making sure we were making those payments.
Yeah. And that reputation piece is reputation is everything. And if you're new in the industry, you'll soon find out the real estate investing community, like Nashville or whatever city you're in. Nashville's a pretty big city, but the real estate investing community is very small. And so there's maybe, I don't know, a couple thousand people that are actively doing deals in Middle Tennessee, and we know most of them or have heard of them. And so if you don't do right by a lender or don't do right by a partner, that word it spreads like wildfire, and we've seen that. So
yeah, for sure. All right, so let's keep going up the ladder. So I would say next is hard money. So let's talk about our rates, and then I want to go in and make sure we're differentiating why we're different as far as the fee structure goes.
Sure. Typical hard money rates are usually anywhere from, I'd say, 11 to 15%, and usually anywhere from 1 to 5, 6 points, which a point is 1% of the loan balance.
So let's go further into that. So on a $100,000 loan, when we talk about points, the points are basically to be paid on the loan when you close it. Or it can be rolled in and you can basically be accumulating, paying interest on those points and then pay them at the end of the project.
So it's a fee to close a loan, essentially. It's
banks charge points.
Yep. Origination fee.
Fees.
So it's similar to that. And that goes to cover, work that we have to do, appraisal work, all that, and it's part of our income. So yeah, essentially the rates are, 11 to 15. We land in the 12% range usually. And a lot of that kind of depends on the market that you're local to. So certain areas of the country charge less, and certain areas of the country charge more.
I mean, we've heard 15 and 5 too. And then we've heard 10 and 2. We've heard 10 and 5. We've heard 12 and 3, 12 and 5. Like there's a whole bunch of other things.
A lot of variation.
But on the guys that we've heard 10 and 2 on, what are they doing? They're charging you a fee up front for closing. So it'll be we're 10 and 2, but then we've got a $1,500 closing fee for doing for doc prep up front. And then every time you want a construction draw, which we probably should talk about construction draws as well.
Yeah. Not to mention underwriting fees, processing fees, document prep fees, which we do have a document prep fee. That's the only fee we have outside of our points. That's $300 or so.
$320. Yeah.
$320.
Yep.
Yeah. So the point that I'm trying to make is
when you're comparing, make sure
compare apples to
apples all the way through a loan. Ask all the questions.
And all the questions are, I want to know every single fee that you will charge me at any step of this entire journey, because there's literally people that will charge you a payoff fee at the end. That's a crazy one to me.
A filing fee at the end when you have to go file the documents, So
So that's why I liked comparing it to the airlines, because to me, it was literally like every time I went to American Airlines and I flew, I was like, what are you trying? Why is this an extra $5? Because I want to pick my seat on the way back. And they're like, no, it's $25. Or you get a center seat in the back of the plane. Good luck.
You want to take your backpack now?
That's
$50.
That's the kind of stuff they're doing. So, but other hard money lenders will do that, because when you talk to them, they go, I'm 10-2. And then you hear that we're 12-3.
Yeah.
And they go, oh, well, I'm going to go with you because the Nashville money guys are more expensive. But when you actually look at the entire project, we're either competitive or we win.
Yeah.
For sure.
And we're just easier to deal with because you're not getting constant fees that you have to pay.
Yeah.
So,
yeah. And there's flexibility with us.
Yeah.
Let's talk about this is the one that I think is the most expensive one that people don't understand is the most expensive one.
Yeah.
Partnerships. So this is a lot of how we started because we didn't know.
None of us really had money.
Yeah, we didn't have money, and we also didn't understand hard money. And I honestly wonder if we would have been scared of hard money when we looked at it initially. We would have been like, oh my gosh, 12% interest?
Yeah.
I'd rather do a 50-50 partnership with somebody. And then you look at what your effective interest rate was over the entire project, and you go, oh no, my effective interest rate was 30%.
Yeah. So that's a typical structure when you're beginning as a 50-50 partnership. You bring the labor and the skills, and somebody brings the money, and then you split. Yeah.
And so if your
And
profit...
those aren't always bad.
No.
Like, it's more expensive, but my first probably 10 deals that I did were that same structure where somebody else put up the money, I did all the work, and then we did a 50-50 profit split on it. But I had no cash flow to pay the payments, and so I'm like, well, I don't want to take the risk. And so paying out that large chunk of the equity at the end was worth it to me, just because I didn't want the cash drag of having to make those payments every month. So
That's super valid, and I think that it was probably something similar for me, and probably
and
for
we
you
will
as
do
well.
those deals. So if you're in that spot where you're like, I don't really want to have this $4,000 a month payment on a $400,000 loan, then we'll do partnership deals as well.
We're picky about those. Like, we want those deals have to be absolute banger home runs, and we have to trust that you're a competent person.
Yeah.
Like, if you're brand new, if you get a smoking deal, like, that's cool. I mean, I talked to one guy the other day who it was his grandma's house. She passed away, and he brought it in, and I was like, well, that might be a thing. We need to reach back out to this guy and see if he wants to do a partnership deal. There was other problems with that deal, but yeah. All right. So what was the next thing on the little list?
So a couple questions. It says, who uses them and why. So
you want to talk about new people versus like intermediate people?
Yeah, we can get into that.
Well, also real quick on interest rates. I think most people understand this, but I've had a few people that I've talked to like, so wait a minute, that's 12%. I have to pay 12% of whatever the whole thing was when I'm done. And in hard money, you typically have 12 and 3, and the lower number is going to be the points that are charged. So on a $100,000 loan, you'll get charged 3 points, and those get paid no matter what. So if you only had the loan out for a month, you still have to pay those 3,000 in points. The interest rate is based on an annual basis. So for us, it's really easy because we charge 12%. So that basically means 1% per month is what you'll pay while you've got the money out.
We shouldn't glaze over this, because that was one of the things that, when you look at how expensive a hard money loan is, if you have the loan for 3 months, like let's say you have a paint and carpet rehab and it's $100,000, like whatever, we do $100,000 loan just to keep the numbers easy again. You have paid 3% in points, so $3,000, and then you've had it for 3 months, so you've paid another $3,000 in interest. So your total interest that you would have paid us is $3,000 plus the $320 filing fee.
Yeah. And when you compare that with, okay, if I went to my local bank and then gave them blood samples and, signed over my firstborn and everything that they're going to want, I'm going to be able to get in today's market, probably 7 or 8% interest rate. So you're going to save 4% over a year. So that means in 3 months, you're going to end up saving
1.3%.
1.3%. So you're going to save $1,000 in fees, and then we're charging 3 points. But whatever lender you use, you're not getting away from the closing table without paying at least 2 points. So it might be 1% origination and then appraisal fee, underwriting, processing. Like, it's going to get to 2 points no matter what. So maybe you're paying an additional point to use hard money versus a traditional lender. And then maybe you're paying an extra 1.3% over that 3-month period. But that cost is minimal compared to your overall profit. And so the trade-off is the speed and ease of closing a hard money loan versus I need 30 days and probably have to bring money to the table over
For
here
sure.
and all of the underwriting headaches.
I think when you stretch it out, like if you're going to do a project that's really big or you're going to not do a good job on the rehab, that's where hard money really will get you. And let's just be real about that. Like we've had some people that their projects, they did not do a good job managing. And I can think of multiple projects that have gone 18 months.
Yeah.
And that's where it'll really bite you in
And
the
we
ass.
probably ended up making more money on those deals than they did,
Yeah.
truth be told,
Yeah, for sure. But
just because they let it go for so long.
correct. So like this is a thing where and I would say no matter what though, no matter what structure you're choosing to finance the deal, focusing and actually getting it done and finishing it should be the priority.
Right.
This shouldn't be a side gig. But if you're using hard money, it's especially something you want to know every single month this stacks up is taking a chunk of your profits away.
We should do that on another podcast episode, talk about like the construction timeline and like these are the things that you're going to have huge lead times on. So when you're putting everything together, then
that's a good idea.
order these first. And because a lot of newbies getting in, they're like, yeah, I need Windows. I'll just order those when it's ready for Windows. And then you're like, oh wait, that takes
Big lead times, yeah.
Yeah. So next was who typically uses them, why.
Oh yeah.
We covered that a little bit.
Do
but-
new people and then you do intermediate people, like people in growth mode.
So new people tend to use hard money loans just because they're easy. They don't have the experience. They don't have the record keeping that shows that they've done this before. So they go to a hard money loan. And if you're a good hard money lender, you will help coach somebody through the process. So which is kind of what we do, where we help, like that's not a great deal. Here's why. That actually is a good deal. Here's why. So figuring that out. And they typically go to us because we're easy, I think. And they're looking for that little extra hand holding.
Yep.
So
That's actually a good point on if you go to a hard money lender, you're going to be dealing with someone who has tremendous experience in real estate investing, especially a local mom and pop shop like us. So you're actually going to get a second set of eyes on your deal versus Bank of America. All Bank of America cares about is Brandon going to be able to pay me back? And so they're not looking at your deal and analyzing the deal to go, yes, this is a good deal or not a good deal. They're just saying, can this person pay me back? With us, you actually have 3 sets of eyes, I guess, looking at your deal and going, yeah, we wouldn't loan money on this deal, and here's why. So you get kind of a backup taking a look at your offer.
Yeah, for sure. Because those people that like you've showed them how to use comps, like because they're improperly doing their comps, and the realtor's sending them stuff that's 5 miles away in a completely different neighborhood with a completely different size and age class of homes, and they're like, "But look at all these over here," and you're like, "No." Like the education that has happened,
But the Zestimate.
but the Zestimate says, I love that one.
yeah.
All right, and then do intermediate people. Like, why would you use hard money if you're in growth mode?
Yeah, so intermediate people, it's all about speed and ease. And so even like, I don't remember the last time we borrowed hard money on a project, maybe the Pinhook deal, but like, we're 25 years into doing this professionally and we still use hard money from time to time when it's like, okay, yeah, we got to close this or whatever the asset type is. It's just not going to make sense for a traditional lender to look at, then we'll still use hard money. So, but typically it's going to be speed and ease. If you've got 8 projects going at the same time and taking all of those to a traditional lender, and they're going to want all of the financials on all 8 of those deals, plus all the financials on your rental properties and all of that. Whereas a hard money lender is just going to go, okay, does this deal stand on its own to be good for the money? And if it does, they'll do the deal.
And that means that you can do more deals. So even though you're paying a higher interest rate, maybe even over a bunch of the projects, you're able to do 12, 13, 14 projects at a time versus only being able to do whatever, 4, 5, 6, especially if the bank is making you put money into the projects.
Yeah, I think too, it's just additional capital on top of all the other things you've already utilized. So
Yeah, because at that
you've
level,
used banks,
Yep.
you've used your line of credit, you've done all those, but there's a great deal right there.
Yep.
You use hard money and you get it.
Yep, that makes total sense. All right. What's next on the ChatGPT list?
Experienced? Is it?
You want to go all the way?
Yeah,
I mean,
go for
I
it.
think
You
we
do it.
kind of bled into that a little bit as well. But it's the same thing. Like, it's just you're at a certain point, you've got more deals than you've got access to money. Like, unless you've got a relationship with somebody with just crazy deep pockets, you will run into a scenario where you run out of money and you need to close something because you found a better deal. So that's why you'd just say, I'm going to opt for hard money.
All right. The last part of the outline was when and where do they make the most sense? I feel like we kind of touched on that too. But
Okay, we can skip it.
all right. What's one myth about hard money lending or hard money loans that people get wrong?
In my opinion, it's that they are predatory. I find the amount of people that we have helped get their businesses started or grow their businesses to be very satisfying. I don't think that the risk that we take is predatory in the slightest.
Yeah. I would say, from scrolling the TikToks and all those things, when people post a deal or when somebody that's doing a deal posts it and then everyone says, oh, that'd be nice. I wish I had 300K sitting around. It's those kinds of things where people don't understand. The myth is that it doesn't exist to me, like that it's hard to use or doesn't exist because I feel the general perception is nobody knows it's even really out there.
That's interesting.
So,
okay. You got myth?
I think for me, the myth is hard money is so expensive. I mean, we just went over the math. Like, if you actually break it down in terms of how many more dollars you're going to spend to go the hard money route versus a traditional bank route, hard money, yes, it's more expensive, but it's not comparatively crazy expensive compared to what you would pay under a traditional lender.
All right.
There's two more questions that we can answer kind of round robin like that, I think. Can you give me an example of a borrower who really benefited from using hard money?
We've got a guy out of Chattanooga who has a really hard time with organization, but he's a fantastic marketer. And so we kind of allow him to lean into his strengths and be a great marketer who finds really good deals, but is terrible at his back office.
Yep.
So, that's an example.
Yeah. Where he would not be able to get traditional.
Not a chance.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm going to say we've had some borrowers where they underestimated the value of repairs, or the scope became much larger than necessary or than they perceived. And we were able to work with them through that, whereas a bank would probably shut it down.
I mean, we've had some huge changes that we've had to we're talking major rehab that turned into new construction on multiple different sites, and we were able to work with people through that scenario.
Whereas institutional money or private lenders maybe, but institutional money, I think they would have freaked out.
They would have freaked out. Like, you actually might have gone into foreclosure. They may have literally filed foreclosure because you got so far out of basically the scope that they were willing to be lending on.
Yeah, I think I would probably just think of borrowers that had non-traditional asset types. So we've got one borrower that does a decent amount of setting new mobile homes on land, and a lot of traditional lenders freak out if it's a manufactured home. And so if you've got a non-conventional asset type, then hard money lender might be the right route.
All righty.
Perfect. All right, last one. How do we at Nashville Money Guys make this process easier for first timers?
I think that if you do what you're supposed to do on the application and you submit the videos and pictures of the house and you submit the scope of work and then you submit the comps, we're able to analyze that quickly enough and then give you legitimate feedback. And we've already kind of talked about that. So as a first-time person, you're going to get Brandon's experience as a realtor for the last 25 years, looking at comps and being able to give you good feedback. And then my experience as a GC, being able to look at your scope of work and go, hey, there may be some holes here, 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 and here.
Yeah.
So as a new person, I think that's
Yeah. I think two-part for me real quick is the fee structure. We're really simple, and we can explain it over a 5-minute conversation on the phone. And then in addition to that, we're small enough that we can incorporate some software stuff that we're trying to grow. So we have a great CRM. We incorporate emails back and forth through the CRM to track stuff. And I handle the side. So the inspection forms that we send out kind of keep everything organized and help you. We're not we're not the big guys yet, but we're pushing our systems towards that.
Yeah.
So
Got it. Got anything?
Yeah, I think for me, I would just kind of echo the ease. We don't need tax returns. We do want bank statements to show that you've got some reserves to be able to pay the loan. But outside of that, it's really just pictures and videos of the house and your scope of work, and you can close a loan in 48, 72 hours easily.
Yep. There's a list of 8 to 10 things that we ask for. Not all of them are required, but we ask for them. If you have an LLC, we need the documents. So
Driver's license, bank statement,
Yep. So
scope of work, comps. I mean,
stuff that you
in
should
30,
have.
in 30 minutes. You
Yeah.
should be able to get all of the data that we need.
Stuff that you should have if you're doing this. Like,
yeah, for sure. All right.
Yeah.
What's next?
That's it for that one.
So if you're interested in hard money, check us out at NashvilleMoneyGuys.com. Again, that's NashvilleMoneyGuys.com. Shoot us an email. If you've got any questions, you want to jump on the phone with one of us, we would be glad to take the call and kind of give you any more information if we need to drill down on any of this. Like and subscribe to the channel. We're very tiny. We need to grow so that more people can hear the good word of real estate and investing and the freedom that it has brought all of us. Thanks for watching.